Welcome to Expertise is Overrated, the podcast that takes the time to answer the questions you didn't know you didn't want the answers to. I'm Vib.
And I'm Sean, and neither of us has any clue what we're talking about. Before we get to today's episode, let's award the much vaunted Expertise is Overrated Tinfoil Award. Now, obviously, this one was really easy to do. We discussed the history of the Warhammer world, and for some reason, we'd both obviously been eating too many mushrooms, and we came up with the idea that there might be some society of rat men kicking around.
What?
And I just don't know. I think we have to apologise.
I think we do. We are very sorry for entertaining such a frankly ridiculous notion.
It was, yeah.
I think it's only fair that we both shared a tinfoil hat for this one.
Yeah.
I mean, rats, honestly, it's just, who would come up with that sort of nonsense?
Yeah. There's not really much more that can be.
No, I think we move swiftly on, to be honest with you.
Swiftly on and hope that
happens.
We hope that we get forgiven for our lapse of judgment. In today's episode, we'll be, as we promised last time, ranking the Primarchs from Warhammer 40k. So, without any further ado, let's get to it. Shall I go first?
Yeah, go on then. Let's see the wrong list first, and then.
Okay, so
we'll
starting.
have the right one.
I don't think really I know what I've ranked them on the basis of, other than a sort of generic, maybe power, general impressiveness. Probably.
I'm glad you said that because I had a similar issue.
Yeah. So this is. I wrote a list that has numbers on it, starting at the bottom. My number 18 is Alfarius, then Ferrus Manus, Robut Gilman, Fulgrim, then Lorgar, Corax, Mortarion Vulcan, and then at number 10, Rogel Dorn. Number 9 is Perturabo, number 8, Conrad Kurz, number 7 is the Khan, number 6, Lionel Johnson, number 5, Lehman Russ, number 4, Angron, number 3, Magnus the Red, number 2, Sanguinius, and number 1, sitting at the top, is Horus. Honestly, as I said, some of those I'm unconvinced. So let's see what you've got.
I mean, yeah, I'm not really entirely sure what to say. Other than you're obviously very wrong.
Okay, I don't know. Do you want to talk about my list before we do yours?
No. I'll run through mine. So just so we see what level we're at.
Okay.
So again, yeah, from the bottom, I've got number 18. I've got Ferrus Manus. 17, I've got Mortarion. At 16, I've got Gilliman. 15, Lorgar. 14 is Horus for me. 13 is Perturabo. 12 is Corax. 11 is Angron. 10 is Alfarius. 9 is Jagatai Khan. 8 is Vulcan. 7 is Rogel Dorn. 6 is Fulgrim. 5 is Lehman Russ. 4 is Lionel Johnson. 3 is Magnus the Red. 2 is Conrad Kurz, and 1 can only be Sanguinius.
I'm sorry. What did you say? Horus at 14? Yes.
I did indeed say Horus at 14. Shall I tell you why he's at 14?
I don't know what I want you to tell me first.
Because I think that is the biggest difference that we have, right? You've put Horus at 1.
Yeah, that's got to be the biggest.
And I fully understand, for once, actually, your reasoning. I know why you might have put Horus at number 1. He's pretty damn strong. I mean, there's no denying that. He causes a little bit of ruckus.
There's like 10,000 years named after him. Well, that's not quite right, but sort of defining moment in the history of the Warhammer 40k universe.
That is just an incredibly anthropocentric view of the Warhammer 40k universe.
Okay.
Sure, as far as the Imperium of Man goes, yeah.
Yes, but
Horus
these are all subject to the Imperium of Man. It's not like Lionel Johnson is an Eldar, right? It's all in the context of their impact on the Imperium, surely.
Well, I mean, this ranking is, I'm not going to lie, frankly, just sort of how I felt about all of them. Because in terms of, if I'd ranked them on absolute power, Horus, yeah. Well, it's hard to judge, isn't it, really? Because when they're all normal, quote unquote,
Yeah,
pre-heresy, shall we say? It's really hard to distinguish them. Really,
pre-Horus Rising, you'd probably say there's not a lot in it.
there's not a lot in any of them. It depends kind of on how you want to rank them. In like a 1v1 fight, I don't see Alfarius necessarily winning any of them.
Given that he can pass for a regular Space Marine, I think you might
Well,
have a
quite,
point.
but I think, and this is why for me he's quite a bit higher than for you. Is that that's the whole point of him, right? I mean, he would never have to be in a 1v1 fight. But
Sure.
back to Horus. He's the first foundling, right? The Emperor is the first.
Yes.
He's the first one the Emperor finds. And
Yeah.
actually, it takes a very long time between that happening and the Emperor finding any of the others. So Horus is in a prime position to, to be pretty much the finest of all the leaders of the Imperium, and he even becomes the War Master.
Sure.
And what does he do with it? Nothing. He throws his toys at the pram. He says, "Oh, my dad is such a bad guy. Blah blah blah. Oh, chaos. Oh, let's have a heresy and then fuck it up." So he's disappointing, I guess is what I'm saying. He disappointed me.
The fact that he doesn't pull off the heresy is not great. It's not a tick in his column, really. I mean, if you're gonna take a shot at the king, you better not miss. He definitely misses.
And not only does he miss, but
he does die.
Well, and this is important, you see, because I did watch a little video on the Primarks before we recorded this.
Well, that's definitely cheating.
Yeah, but it was one about which Primarks might come back into the actual tabletop game,
right?
Which was quite interesting. And obviously, very last on that list was Horus, because not only does he die, like a few of these guys die, that's it's 40k, but he is fully destroyed.
Yeah.
Mind, soul, body, everything.
There
is no way he is ever coming back.
That's yes. I think that's true, but I also he's also the only one who goes toe to toe with the Emperor. Right now, and he does also nearly win.
Yeah, that is admittedly a bit complicated. But he goes up against the Emperor, who doesn't, for most of the fight, actually want to fight back properly. Because the very second that the Emperor does decide to fight back, he does delete Horus from, everything.
Sure, but in the I don't want to fight you section of their fight, Horus does enough lasting damage to put the Emperor in a wheelchair for 10,000 years.
Oh, very true. But that's just a bit of a Christ Redeemer scenario, isn't it? Really?
Well, yes, but also sort of the Emperor is meant to sort of be able to control his own being, right? The Emperor appears as he wants to the people who see him. So one also sort of assumes that he'd be able to, I don't know, rewrite his own body to not be broken by that fight. So Horus obviously does some pretty serious lasting damage. I don't know.
We assume. I mean,
we assume that
what the Emperor is up to is probably an episode in and of itself, because it is very hard to understand what's going on.
Please explain yourself. You're at least 40,000 years old. Why does it take you so long to do anything? But that's by the by.
And you're right. I mean, Horus does supposedly do that to the Emperor, but that's kind of it, really.
All the other Primarchs are scared of him, with the exception of, like, weirdly, Dorn, which is quite funny. Dorn just got quite high on my list, despite not really doing anything, by constantly asserting that if Horus shows up on Terra, Dorn is going to kick his ass. Which is just excellent. But I don't know. It confused me. I guess I maybe didn't think it through, but when I was writing my list, there were like 3 fixed points that everyone else had to fit around. Really? So Horus at the top, followed by Sanguinius, and Alfarius at the bottom. Now, I take what you're saying about Alfarius. In a 1v1 with any of these people ends up in 4 different places, but yeah.
Except maybe Ferris, because wow.
Well. Okay, let's park Horus for the moment. There's a chance I'm gonna come back to that one as we talk about others.
You don't have any good counter arguments, is what you're actually saying.
It's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, I think we need to get a better sense of how each of us has ranked them.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair.
Because some of it seems to be power, right? That's why someone like Magnus is so high on both of our lists. But yeah, what did you mentioned impact at one point, but Horus I think has the biggest impact. So
not did I say impact? Or...
You might have done. I might be misremembering.
If so, maybe impact on me in some ways. Just who I thought were a bit cool, and had interesting stories and were interesting characters.
Okay.
And I guess Horus suffers from being.
No,
I suppose the main.
I think I'm looking at my list. Looking at my list again, I think I've sort of focused on quite hard on the sort of martial abilities in a conflict, perhaps, rather than a fight.
But if we look, yeah, I suppose you're not wrong. But that's equally true. I mean, because we got Sanguinius very high, and let's face it, he's pretty damn good. And I will explain why I think he is number one, even if I were to rate Horus higher.
Okay.
I think Sanguinius would always be above Horus. And then I've got Magnus, Lion, Lehman, Russ. These are all guys who essentially just love a good scrap.
Yeah, but you've got Kurz at 2.
Yeah, but he's just an interesting character, and I confess I don't know that much about him. But from what I've gathered, he does essentially lead. Is it Guilliman and Dawn on the wildest of wild goose chases, and it's really funny. I think supposedly it's 2 massive tacticians.
Isn't it Guilliman and the Lion?
Is it the Lion? It could be the Lion.
I think it is. I think it's in. But even
Ultramar. If it's just Guilliman, his one thing is that he's a strategist and he just can't find this guy. It's just a bit.
It's quite
embarrassing.
Funny. He also fights everyone. Right, he fights Guilliman.
Well, yeah, because he gets chased by everyone. Right?
Yeah, he fights Guilliman.
He really want him dead.
He fights the Lion. And I think technically he loses both times. He fights Sanguinius, but he doesn't die. He comes out of them alive, and not every Primarch on this list can say that. Ferris. He's so bad, though.
Ferris is.
What's the point?
He's like a budget Hephaestus, isn't he?
I'm not sure he even is, because I think that's Vulcan.
As I said that, I thought, yeah, because I mean the whole reason this all kicks off is that he gets into a smithing competition with Fulgrim, right? Who can
I'm not sure that's the whole reason this kicks off.
No,
that thing that happens.
That's in their fight.
That's why their fight happens, yeah, because they're really close friends.
And in some ways, you might argue, I guess, that yes, he was the better smith because he made a weapon that killed him. Ironically.
Yeah, that's quite good, isn't it?
But yeah, Vulcan. Vulcan would have to be up there in terms of the smithing prowess.
It's Vulcan who makes the things that Vulcan then requires destroyed, right? So one of his last acts before he gets blown up for the first of many times is to tell his legion to destroy all the relics that he made because they're far too powerful. Right? Ferris doesn't do that. Ferris just
gets his head chopped off.
He's just not. He's never particularly impressive whenever you see him. I think.
No, I agree. He doesn't do a whole lot. My sort of abiding memory of him is he shows up, he has a smithing thing. He seems a bit angry a lot of the time.
Yeah, there's a lot of chat about his sort of rage, right? That's one of his defining characteristics. Yeah. But they're all soldiers, right? I'm sure they're all fairly angry. He's not as angry as Angron.
No.
He's probably not as angry as Russ. So he's not as angry as Perturabo. So he's not even. He
He's
doesn't
not
have
even the
any.
best at being angry. No, you're right.
He doesn't have any defining trait.
And
That,
in that fight against Fulgrim's Legion, it's sort of he doesn't appear to be winning. Then all he really does is charge into the fight, gets beheaded, and that's sort of that, really. Thanks for coming, Manus. You know?
yeah.
Yeah, that's why for me he was definitely last, because just nothing to say about him.
The only reason that I've got him above Alpharius is my note next to Alpharius just reads, "What even is the point?"
Which is precisely his point, of course.
Exactly. And I suppose I've got Alpharius as a solitary entity, but he's not a solitary entity, is he?
Well, no, because A, he's a twin, and
Yeah.
B, he's the entire Legion.
Yes,
and
there's
no matter how
10,000
strong you are as a Primarch, I don't think you can take an entire Legion.
No, maybe those two at least need to swap.
No, but I get in terms of a sort of impact, or
but we also
what
don't.
cool things has he done? Because you don't hear anything about him, right? That is his point. But it also means he's not that interesting, because you have to kind of just imagine that he may have done things or not.
But as you say, that's his point. The only other thing, I guess, that makes him fairly interesting when compared to the others is the reason that he turns. Right? So lots of them, they all turn for various reasons. Horus, because, I don't know, he wasn't loved enough. Lorgar, because he's hunting for a god. Whatever it might be. But Alpharius turns out of loyalty. Do you know this story?
Now go on.
So I can't remember the book. The book might actually just be called Legion. It's one of the Horus Heresy novels, and Alpharius is brought before a group of Psyker Xenos who are working together essentially to guide the direction of the galaxy. And the future that they show Alpharius is the one in which the heresy, the one in which let me get this right. If Alpharius joins Horus, he is able to direct the heresy in such a way that Horus loses, thereby assuring the ascendancy of the Imperium. Whereas if he stays, quote, loyal to the Emperor, Horus wins? Or something weird happens.
Yeah, this sounds familiar.
Right, so because whenever a member of the Alpha Legion is asked during the heresy, why are you doing this? They say, for the Emperor. So there's something weird going on there, where his reason for turning is that if he doesn't, things are worse for humanity than if he does. Which I guess is really interesting, but it also implies that he needs to be on the losing side, which isn't really. You get Alpharius on your team and then you lose, which isn't really great for his case.
Yeah, it's a slightly less elegant version of Doctor Strange handing over the time stone, I guess.
Yeah, it is.
But yeah, and that's what makes him interesting, because I sort of got the sense, reading up on him a little bit, that he was probably more clued in about the Emperor's plans than possibly any of them. I don't know if that's fair to say, but he just strikes me as the Secret Service branch of this whole operation.
Yeah.
And for him doing that definitely makes a lot of sense. But as I said before, I would not rate his chances if it was genuinely him against any of these other guys. He would probably not come out.
And I suspect even if it's him and Omegon, the two of them probably aren't doing particularly well against one, especially someone like the Khan or Russ or Angron.
Angron.
But you've got. I'm just looking at your
Fulgrim
list.
is another really interesting difference we have, isn't it?
Fulgrim.
Rank
You've
6
got
versus rank
Fulgrim
15.
really high. I've got him at 15.
Because Fulgrim, one of very few to actually fully kill another Primarch, and quite permanently.
So who, or maybe that's before you dive into Fulgrim, which of these actually kill another?
Horus and Fulgrim, I can definitely say.
Horus and Fulgrim. I think Kurz does. I think Kurz kills Vulcan, but it doesn't always stick. Because Vulcan's function.
Well, you mentioned this before, right? The Vulcan blew up the first of many times. So, what are you suggesting here?
So this is. I'm beginning to get the sense I've read more of the Horus heresy than you, but Vulcan appears to be
nonsense. I just need to gauge where you're at.
He appears to be sort of functionally immortal. So, okay, so this
and he is quite probably still out there, yeah.
Probably. So each of the Primarchs has one of the Emperor's aspects, right? Horus is his generic leadership. Sanguinius is his sort of beatific aspect. Angron is his rage. Russ is his justice. The Lion is his mind, etc., etc., etc. It's more obvious with some than others. Mortarion is his gas warfare. Guilliman is his tactics, that sort of thing. They sort of took each of the aspects of the Emperor and distilled them into a single individual. Fulgrim is his beauty, his aesthetic appeal, whatever it might be.
It really becomes problematic with Dawn and Perturabo, though.
Dawn is his implacability, and Perturabo is his unstoppability.
Fair enough. Okay,
but yeah, you got to get quite abstract for some of them. Ferrus is his metal arms,
and then Ferrus is his schizophrenia.
But no, so the idea, there's a big question throughout the heresy. What of these aspects is Vulcan, right? He doesn't really appear to embody any of these, and this sort of people land on, he's the Emperor in his aspect as the creator, but really that is actually Ferrus Manus. He is probably, that's who he's meant to be, like with his magic arms.
Well, yeah.
But so the theory that I have seen is that Vulcan is his immortality. He's his enduring, nature, essentially. Right? Because Vulcan dies 4 or 5 times in the same book, and he just keeps coming back. Like Kurz has him on his ship and tortures him to death over and over and over and over and over again, and he dies and he comes back and is tortured to death, and he dies and he comes back and is tortured to death.
No, I see what you're saying. I think that's not a bad way of looking at him.
Yeah, but why? I forgot why did I start here?
That is an excellent question. You were going to say something very profound, and then second guess yourself, because that's not usually your style.
No, it doesn't sound like. I mean, I've legitimately forgotten how I got here.
So have I, genuinely.
Why were
we started on Fulgrim, and
we were talking about
before we get into Fulgrim, let me tell you all about Vulcan or something.
No, it's completely. Oh no, it's who kills Primarchs.
Oh yes,
that's what we were talking about. That's what we were talking about. Back in the room. Yes, so that's why that's because I was making the case that we should count Kurz, but even though it doesn't stick on Vulcan, but then you have others like Russ, Lehman Russ, for example, who defeats Magnus, but Magnus is also very much alive and pickable on the tabletop. So can we count that?
and the concept of being alive in and of itself is again, I feel this is probably something we discuss in every one of these. It's not exactly black and white, to say the least, is it? Because I think there are suggestions that Sanguinius is very much alive in some form in the warp. Obviously not bodily, I imagine, but his essence, I guess. And this is why I think it's so important that Horus was killed in every which way. He was just expunged, like, from reality. Whereas Sanguinius just died, and so maybe if the Emperor regains some strength, and who knows what he's doing, holding the warp at bay, holding
reality
really,
together.
Yeah, holding reality together. Oh, classic. He's a classic Dresden Files character, of course. It's not necessarily inconceivable that in order to make money for Games Workshop, they will bring Sanguinius back in some capacity.
Yeah, because there's what? Stepping outside the fiction for a second, they've got 2 traitor legions and 1 loyalist legion of pickable. I think because you can take either Magnus.
You mean in terms of Primarks that are alive?
In terms of Primarchs that have models.
Yeah, you got Magnus, you got Guilliman, and I don't know who the third is.
Mortarion.
Oh yes, Mortarion. Yeah, very true. It's such a shame. He's the most.
He's really boring, isn't he?
He's the most vanilla. He really is. That's why he's 17 for me. He's just boring.
So, on my list, anyone who fell, anyone who was turned, is pulled down. So
on your list,
on my list, so Fulgrim is pulled down by that.
Except for Horus.
Mortarians, except for Horus, except for Angron. But yeah, I said that. I've still got Perturabo at 9, and really, I don't know why.
Perturabo for me was another one. Looking at my list now, I think it was maybe harsh to put him above Horus. I think my disappointment in Horus just cannot be expressed enough. And this is someone speaking as someone who's not in fact a Chaos Space Marine player speaking. I'm just disappointed in him. Whereas Perturabo he suffers a little bit from Mortarion syndrome. He's just a bit bland.
At least Mortarion has flavour, though, right? It's so obvious right from his very first mention in any of the books. You're like, oh, this guy's going to Nurgle hard.
Yeah, but that's the thing, right? And he needs that because he's so bland.
Yeah.
And Nurgle is pretty sort of, that'll give you flavour. It's not flavour anyone wants, but it'll give you a lot of it.
A flavour of aged meat. But we say this about Mortarion, but he does give Jagatai pause. Right? There's a scene, because obviously everything comes back to Ulanor, the triumph at Ulanor, where Horus was invested as the War Master. There are always flashbacks to that. And there's a conversation at Ulanor between, among others, Sanguinius, Mortarion, and Fulgrim, where they're talking about who would beat whom in a fight. And Fulgrim's going on and on and on about how he's such a good swordsman, yada yada yada. And Jagadai's like, nah mate, I would take you apart piece by piece. And Fulgrim is really, really offended, and everyone else is just quietly sitting there like, yeah, you probably would. Which is quite funny. But then Mortarion says, what about if we fought? And Jagatai says, I don't know. I don't know if I could beat you.
But of course he doesn't know, because he's so unbelievably bland. No one knows. Like, he could either be really, really shit or really good. You don't know until you fight him. And I don't think anyone does up until before he becomes full-on Nurgle.
I think the Khan does. The Khan fights him on Prospero, when the Khan is trying to work out what happened to Magnus. Because after the wolves burn Prospero, Jagatai is trying to work out, because Jagatai and Magnus are close. God, it's so confusing. And I'm also almost certainly getting all of this wrong in terms of ordering and stuff. But Jagatai and Mortarion do fight.
And who ends up winning in that one?
It's unclear. Jagatai comes out on top, but that's sort of, I think, because Mortarion bitches out and teleports away. But
the classic move.
The classic, no, see you later. But it's written from the Khan's perspective, and there's definitely a moment where he thinks he's swinging the killing blow, or the winning blow.
But this is kind of the problem with everything, isn't it? That a lot of this is written from the Primarchs' view, or at least someone very close to the Primarchs.
Yes.
Certainly human. And this is arguably a prelude to a future episode of ours, which is, why the numbers don't make any sense in 40k. And this is sort of tangential to that, is that, they all think they're pretty tough stuff.
They do all think they're hot shit.
They really do think they're hot shit. And yeah, sure, on a 1v1, yeah, they're pretty hot shit, sure. But you know what? The Nids can throw 1,000 Carnifexes at them, and it doesn't even matter to them. So, yeah, great, you're hot shit. But does anyone really care? I don't think so. Frankly, I think the Primarchs are overrated pushovers, really. There you go. I've said it now.
Well, we didn't know we were getting a hot take episode this one, but there it is.
That's not a hot take. That's common sense. But no, I think it is important to figure out who sort of fought each other and what the.
I've tried to do that. So, Russ and the Lion fight, and depending on who you ask,
sort of, yeah.
It's not a proper fight. They brawl.
It's not like I need to kill this guy now. It's more just you've annoyed me.
They brawl,
and Lion famously wins easily.
Russ definitely wins.
I think you'll find that only one of them was knocked out at the end, and I don't think it was the Lion.
But it wasn't that because Russ pulled his blows so as to not kill his brother.
No, I think it was because the Lion sucker punched him at the end and walked out.
Oh, is that what it was?
The fight's sort of over, and Lion just punches him in the head and is like, "All right, I'm out."
Fuck, that's really funny.
That's why it's really funny that you've got Russ ahead of the Lion, and I've got a Lion ahead of Russ.
Well, I have that not on the basis of their fight, but on the basis of other things that Russ does.
No, I fully agree with you. Although I will deny this, even though we've just said this on air.
Yeah, I will deny this if I'm ever presented with this recording.
I will deny that that's me saying it. No, Russ definitely. I mean, yeah, he goes after Magnus, who's pretty badass. He is sort of the Emperor's executioner.
Yeah, that's exactly the thing. I think there's definitely enough rumor and implication that he's killed another Primarch as well.
One of the unknowns.
Yeah, because obviously there's famously the two unknown Primarchs.
Both are still alive, so I don't see how he could have done that.
Expunged from Imperial records, and it's one of the Space Wolves books where someone says...
I'm proud of you for skating by that. I didn't think you could handle
I'm just not engaging, just keep going. I don't have the mental faculties to deal with your nonsense.
Now it means
today.
I'm going to make this an episode at some point. And you can't stop.
All right, let me finish this, and then you can say your nonsense. But no, someone says to Russ before they go to Prospero, it's unheard, unthinkable that of Primarch fighting Primarch, and Russ says something like, it's not unthinkable. I've had to do this before, and then it's just left at that. And then there are other implications across the rest of the books that is sort of, he's been unleashed before.
Yeah, no, of course. And if you're going to rank them in terms of martial prowess, there's an argument to be made for that.
Yeah.
Although, I mean, the very fact of the matter is that I'm a Dark Angels player. They're obviously the best Legion / chapter, and so the Lion had to go ahead of Russ. And he grows up on Caliban, that's pretty cool. I did actually have a quote that I found from a Major Kill video, if you know him.
Yeah,
the Aussie guy who makes absolutely outrageous videos. But on the Lion, he says, if any Primarch deserves a film about their origin story, it's this guy. Techno Knights fighting hell monsters led by the blackest white guy around. Definitely deserves an origin story. So
that's such a good description. Fuck, I'd watch that.
I'd watch it too, right? So that for me was just the kicker. I was like, okay, the Lion gets it. It's just so badass.
The Lion, to be fair to I was going to say the Lion has a really good one-liner, but they've all got all of them. Some of them are really good one-liners. One of my favourites actually comes from another Mr. Bland, Gilliman, when the Lion comes to Macragge, and he's doing, but the Dark Angels are like on parade and doing all sorts of like fun, US Marine drill type stuff. And Gilliman just says to one of his visors, "Better go and put your fancy clothes on. My big brother's come to town." Which is just so like sass queen from someone who does absolutely nothing for the rest of the heresy.
Oh, damn, he might have to move up in front of
I
Lorgar.
know, just for that
Just for
strength of burn. Oh, but no, he's very boring. I'm yawning even talking about him.
No, I mean, I just really like the Lion, and I'm excited because I think talking about the tabletop again, he's very likely to be maybe the next loyalist to come back.
I think
it's always possible that they will find Russ.
I think he or Russ are the
there,
next
probably.
choice. Right, because
I
Russ
think
is
but there's just more evidence, I think, in the source material to suggest that it would be.
Well, Russ is adventuring in the warp, isn't he?
Yeah, but it's sort of, I mean, because
not always a good idea.
What's his name? The master of the Space Wolves. I've forgotten it now.
Russ.
No, the current.
Oh, Grimnir, Lorgar Grimnir.
Yes, I think he's obviously said in the 9th edition now to be sending out, or the 8th edition, I guess, sending out ships and making sure people are looking for him at all times. But
yeah,
that's sort of all they say on the topic of Russ. Whereas the Lion, it's quite clear, like he's in the rock. His wounds have long healed, they actually say.
Okay.
And he's just sleeping. So if one of them does come back, my money would be on the Lion.
Where did he get his wounds from?
Oh, many chaos demons.
Okay. Oh, because it's
yeah. Well, it's
wait a second.
It's
Hold on. My memory is being jogged here. When you say many
chaos demons, he held off legions of chaos demons.
Were they by any chance all inhabiting the body of an 85-year-old man?
Well, yes, they were, as a matter of fact. Yeah.
That's a little bit embarrassing.
Which probably gave him.
That's a little bit embarrassing.
No, yes, his friend Luther
just gets brought low by a bloke.
Well, Luther well, actually, I can't talk about any of this because obviously none of this ever happened. So I will stick with the Lion. That Lion fought many demons, and obviously, fought them off successfully. But he sustained a wound or two.
I do think that the Dark Angels have a really interesting origin story, right? They're the sort of,
first and foremost, they're loyal.
Clearly, very, very loyal. No such thing as the Fallen. But no, this idea that they're a loyalist legion who are still fighting the fact that they nearly weren't.
Yeah, and it's interesting putting my Dark Angels hat aside for a minute, because I don't know of any other real examples of a legion coming quite so close. Although you might argue it was a complete failure of Lions, right? Because it's essentially a rebellion of his legion.
Well, he just trusts the wrong man.
He trusts the wrong man, yes, for sure.
It's interesting because you're right. It's the only loyalist off the top of my head. It's the only loyalist one that we know that happened to. But it did happen to every single traitor legion, right? They all had to have purges.
That's true. Yeah, that is true.
So is it just that the Dark Angels are the only one we know about?
But it was, yeah, because
oh no, sorry, I've just realised I've got that wrong. It happens to the White Scars as well.
Oh, does it? Okay.
Yes, it does happen to the White Scars.
I mean, they're just full on nuts.
One of the Khan's deputies tries to lead a mutiny, essentially, and the Khan does not take too kindly to it.
No, but I think this was Lion's problem, right? That he essentially punished Luther and a bunch of others, and his punishment was to send them back to Caliban while they went off on the crusade.
Bit stupid.
Yeah, But I mean, it's sort of, commanding officer to a man you trust and respect. You think, okay, he'll get over it, right? But he's still loyal. And then when they fly back to Caliban, they just get instantly bombarded by all the orbital defenses. So it's not great. For someone who you said sort of is supposed to embody the Emperor's mind, he doesn't think very well sometimes, or very very cleverly.
I guess it's Luther is his oldest friend.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, so he's blind there, which is understandable.
But enough about the obviously most excellent Primarch there actually is. So let's give Fulgrim a little bit of airtime.
Let's have
You've got him really low. Come on, explain away.
You've got him really high. So why is Fulgrim so high? So we see he's one of the first to fall. Right.
Yep.
He also falls completely independently of anyone else. Right.
He falls to Slaanesh, though. To be fair to him.
Sure.
But
that's not really an answer. You only got corrupted by the guy who's known as, or girl, or whatever the Slaanesh is, who's known of being a corrupter. Whoops. There's also this weird thing of he might actually just be a painting. Like there's a painting that's done of him during his fall, and then there's definitely an implication that he might be the Fulgrim's soul, whatever it is, might be trapped in the painting, and his body's just being inhabited by a demon, which is quite embarrassing. Really, like he doesn't. Yeah,
is that more embarrassing than falling?
Well, you fall and you don't even get to fall properly because you're in a painting.
Yeah, but could that be because his soul resisted and so he was kicked out of it?
I don't think so. I think you've got to have your soul trapped in a painting because you're that vain. You probably have to have already fallen.
But this is why he's so high for me, because he is. I don't really know how to put this, but he's more or less the Michelangelo of all the Primarchs, right? He's just a bit artistic. He's incredibly vain.
He is incredibly vain.
He fancies himself, the best at everything.
Yeah.
And everybody kind of thinks, yeah, all right, mate. We get it. You're just a bit of a pretentious art snob.
Yeah.
Bit of a twat. But then he does actually kind of perform fairly well.
Well, because he kills Ferrus Manus.
Well, he kills Ferrus. He's still alive, as far as I know.
Well, he's a demon. That's cheating.
It is cheating, but he's the first to fall, and he's also still there. I mean,
I say he's the first to fall.
Okay. He's fought a few fights as well.
I say he's the first to fall. It's unclear to me whether he or Lorgar fall first.
Yeah, but who cares about Lorgar?
Yeah, it's a fair point. I don't know. Yeah, I might be falling victim to the he's just a bit of a fancy boy, to have him down at 15 on my list, but I don't think that you can realistically put him above the Khan or above Angron. That's the one that really stands out to me.
Well, Angron again. Angron's just a little bit too. I don't want to say boring, even though I do mean boring. I mean, because I feel bad for the guy, right? He's got metal spikes rammed into his head, and he's in constant pain, and yeah, he's very, very angry. But his name is Angron. The fact that he's angry is a bit
on the nose.
Bit on the nose. and sure, he's angry, and he does a lot of killing, and he's Khorne and Berserkers, and we love all that stuff. Sure.
Yeah.
But and the Khan, I guess, he's equally just a mad lad, right? He rides these horses, stroke bikes, and just chops heads off. It's great, fantastic. Totally love that.
Sure.
But where I think Fulgrim for me is just a little bit more interesting is because I just get this image of this kind of slender-looking, artsy guy who is a genuine artist.
Yes.
Standing on a battlefield, and people are like, "What is this guy doing here?" And then casually still chopping off heads left, right, and center, including that of another Primarch. it's just that image for me lands him the Cylinder from the 6th spot. It's just really interesting.
It's quite a funny image. I grant you, but I don't know. It might just be me. It might be my pre-existing biases, but I've never found Slaanesh characters particularly interesting. Like, it's not an interesting story that you fell by being corrupted by the thing that is sort of. Slaaneshi sins are like regular Judeo-Christian sins,
Yeah,
right?
you're not wrong.
It's the seven deadly sins, particularly lust and gluttony. But like, falling to Nurgle is interesting because falling to Nurgle is sort of bowing to the inherent entropy in the universe, right? Falling to Khorne is recognizing that the 40k universe is an age of war, and so you might as well embrace battle. Falling to Tzeentch is
Just weird.
But trying to control your own fate, right? Trying to become a master of your own destiny. And falling to Slaanesh is just, I did one of the 7 deadly sins. It's just not interesting to me in the same way, I don't think, and that might be why I've got Fulgrim so low.
Maybe not. I mean, I've got a slightly different view of Slaanesh, perhaps. And I think the way that all of this is described in the book Fulgrim, like it's really interesting watching all that happen. You know, there's that artist who just starts off painting normal paintings and then slowly gets more and more utterly batshit insane.
This is the woman who paints with blood and shit.
Exactly, yes. By the end, she's essentially just painting with dead bodies. But what I think is interesting about Slaanesh is that, because I think it is fair to say it's most often represented in this is the sort of the chaos god of lust and horribly bastardized, sexualized things. But it's more intricate than that because, yeah, sure, there is the whole lust aspect, but it's people who fall to Slaanesh can't tell the difference between lust and pain anymore. And it's this really interesting.
Well, it's sensation, right?
That thing is demonstrably terrible for them.
The whole thing is it's about sensation. It's not about positive or negative sensation. The only thing that matters is the sensation. Yeah, which is interesting, I suppose.
But no, I could see why you would put. For me, it's just that image mainly. That image is just so weird.
It is quite funny. I like
holding a paintbrush and still just there, like, oh yeah, screw you.
And I like the idea that he's not just a warrior, and that might actually be why we're coming back to this one that I don't understand on my own list. That might actually be why Perturabo is high. I think he's too high. I think he needs to come down a bit. But Perturabo is an architect. He's a builder. In a way different even from Dorn, right? So Dorn builds fortresses, right? He fortifies the Imperial Palace. He fortifies Terra. But in so doing, he ruins the beauty of the Imperial. It's clearly stated throughout that what Dorn is doing is ripping down artwork that's thousands of years old and replacing it with bastions and sandbags and all of that. Whereas I think there's meant to be a sense from Perturabo that he can build while still preserving some of that, and the idea that he's just a sort of a siege builder is a massive simplification of who he is. Now, given that I've got Fulgrim at 15, obviously this idea of a sort of artistic warrior doesn't carry much weight with me, but that's maybe why he's there. I don't know.
No, I mean, and you've got him and Dawn very close together. To be honest, Perturabo is one that I just didn't know very much about, so that's why for me he's 13, because it's sort of like, okay, I'll
pretty nothing.
A bit like Korax, it's just sort of, put him there. I don't really know.
Yeah.
And I've put Dawn in the top 10 because I just didn't want to piss off all the Imperial Fist fans out there.
It's true. There are a lot of them, and they're quite loud about how much they like the Imperial Fist. It's true. I think Dorn going high, he holds off of what he does to the Imperial Palace holds off the siege of or extends the siege of Tara for as long as it does,
Yeah.
which is pretty impressive when you look at who he's going up against.
It massively is, yeah, massively is. Although speaking of fights on Terra, explain to me why you, a Blood Angels collector, has decided that Sanguinius is less high on the list than Horus. I didn't want to say less powerful because I don't really know what we're ranking this on, but
Why he's only 2?
why he's number 2? Yes.
Well, because he's dead, and because Horus killed him.
Horus is even more dead.
Yeah, but Horus doesn't. Sanguinius doesn't kill Horus. Why is
he doesn't?
So why is the angel at 2 rather than at 1? It's because Horus at 1 was my fixed point, I think.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you did say that, which I guess is fair, idiotic, but fair.
It's not simplistic, perhaps, but not idiotic.
It's a bit idiotic, let's be honest.
But I think that's why I think there's not much between those two. Sanguinius does also have like wings, which feels a little bit like giving him an unfair advantage.
Perhaps.
But he is also.
I must confess that.
Why is he
now that
one on yours?
Well, yeah. Now that I say that it's idiotic that you had Horus as a focal point. For me, Sanguinius was the focal point at number 1.
Okay.
Because even Horus himself says that he thinks Sanguinius is the best of them all. He should be the War Master.
Yeah.
I think everyone agrees that Sanguinius is, in terms of likeness, and I don't think that that's just in the sort of physical representation, because he does look very much like the Emperor. But just his being, his presence, is the most like.
He's the Emperor's soul.
Emperor.
If we go back to this idea that each one of them embodies an aspect, I think that's probably what you can stick at.
Yeah,
stick
those stories where other people just can't be in the room without bowing their heads almost, because he's just that impressive. So for me, he was number 1, and the reason I didn't think that the fact that Horus killed him was enough to bump him down. I mean, he did fight Kabanda on Terra before. He does. He breaks the Bloodthirster's back.
Yeah,
and that's after obviously having been part of that siege for a long time, and then he tries to confront Horus, who's quite clearly very powerful at that point. And even though he's tired, like genuinely tiredness on a scale that I'm pretty sure none of us has ever seen, and he thinks, well, might as well just attack him back and see what happens.
Yeah,
and he does. Some say the blow that eventually the Emperor exploits to kill Horus. So
it is, isn't it? He cracks the armor.
So after all that, and Horus, from what I can tell, has essentially done fuck all so far in that fight, or before that fight. So he's well rested.
Yeah, he's just sort of sitting and brooding, looking out of his window or something.
So while again the whole angelic thing is a bit on the nose, as you say, he's got wings, and he's the one who sacrifices himself to deal the blow that eventually gets Horus killed. But I'll give him that.
Yeah, no, I think there's a strong case to have Sanguinius at 1. Sanguinius is crowned Emperor of, was it Imperium Secundus that Guilliman builds during the when the Ultramarines are cut off. Sanguinius is the one who ends up ruling that, and Guilliman and the Lion both say that he should rule. You're right, Horus says it should have been you when talking about the fact that he's War Master, but I think there's sort of, he's too obviously not human, I think. And yes, obviously they're all like 12 foot tall.
Sanguinius, you mean?
Yes.
But that has to be true of the Emperor.
But the Emperor, as I say, he can control how he appears, right? So he's less obviously not human, other than the times that he's appearing as like a glowing column of light or whatever it might be. But he does also appear to people just as a bloke, not even on a sort of Astartes scale. He's just like a 6 foot tall chap. He can like dim his own luminance or whatever it is.
Yeah.
In a way that Sanguinius can't. Now, obviously, the Emperor isn't human. Like, that goes without saying. but the fact that it's less obvious
Talk
with
about a
him,
hot
I
take.
think. He's
The Emperor of
40,000 years.
Man is not man.
He's 40,000 years old. He might be. He's impressive, but he's not human. I'm just trying to. I'm just looking at these lists, trying to work out if there's anything else that we need to talk about. We thought we were
I thought we were
gonna
going to
have.
fight a bit more, but ultimately
We've been.
we are somewhat in agreement. We both agree that Gilliman is a bit shit. And there's
Oh
no
yeah,
surprise. There shouldn't be surprises there.
We've not made fun of the only living loyalist Primarch enough. We should probably do that a bit. He is really boring.
He's so boring.
His best act was writing a book that when he came back from the dead, he went, "Oh, turns out I wrote the wrong book." Like, come on.
And come on, Ultramar, and the best he can come up with is Ultramarines. It's just...
Yeah, that's quite embarrassing.
Come on, mate.
That's quite embarrassing.
And he gets killed... Well, I guess he doesn't get killed, but he gets his ass kicked way too many times.
And he gets his ass absolutely ruined by Angron. Like, it's hilarious how badly he loses to Angron.
It gets to the point where I genuinely think if there is a Primarch that Alpharius could take, it probably is Gilliman.
Oh, he nearly dies to 6. He nearly dies to 6 Alpha Legion.
He dies to 6 Alpha Legion guys, yeah.
It's so embarrassing for him. They sure, they're masters of infiltration, what have you. But it ends up they're in his office with and he works out that they're Alpha Legion. And then they nearly kill him, and you're just like, come on.
Yeah. But then again, is it Magnus who gets killed by an assassin in the end? Is that Magnus? No.
No, Magnus gets killed by Russ. Who gets killed by an assassin?
There's a I completely forgotten this, but there's a Primarch who gets killed by a I also forget what they're called. Hang on,
Oh, Kurz.
Kurz, yes, that's the one.
Killed by
a Calidus assassin. Yeah. Although the suggestion is that Kurz kind of wanted to die at that point, so we'll see.
I've got it here. Primarchs killed by mortals. This will be a good way to end. Conrad Kurz slain by Mshen, Calidus assassin. Rogel Dorn killed by a host of traitor marines led by Abaddon. That's during the siege, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sanguinius slain by Horus. Horus evaporated by the Emperor.
Evaporated. I mean, that's a bit unfair to say that the Emperor is immortal.
Yeah, that's not. The Lion incapacitated by a psychic attack from Luther. Gilliman laid low by Fulgrim. Hey, it sounds like I wrote this. Vulcan killed many, many times by Curse, but it didn't stick. Manus decapitated by Fulgrim. Alpharius killed by Gilman. Question mark.
I think you let him go, personally.
And then Magnus, or at least a shard of him, brought down to 1 HP by Bjorn, Ironhelm, and Greylock, but used Run and got away safely. That's quite funny.
That's quite good.
Well written.
But there you go. Fulgrim kills 2.
Parker.
Or, well, it nearly kills 2 Primarchs.
Laid low by Fulgrim. I thought it was an orc that did for Gilliman.
I've heard quite a few different stories.
Maybe it's so
would be less bad because I mean, orcs nearly get to the Emperor, don't they? When he's fighting back to back with Horus. But
yeah,
I think Fulgrim's quite cool. I think we can objectively say that our lists objectively aren't too bad. The only demonstrably wrong thing on here is that you've got Russ and Lion the wrong way around, but I'll let it slide. Not everyone sees the glory of the Dark Angels.
My favourite thing is that we've managed to get Russ and the Lion. I've got them at 5 and 6, and you've got them at 4 and 5. So not only did we were always going to have them the wrong way around, but we basically agreed on their position, which I just think is really, really fun.
We fully agree on Russ, yeah.
We both agree that Russ is 5.
It might be the only one that we've fully agreed on.
But so we've both fully agreed that he's 5. We fully agree on Magnus as well at 3. So this was going to be my last thing. We fully agree that Russ is 5 and that Magnus is 3, despite the fact that Russ beats Magnus. So there's obviously something going on in our list beyond who beats whom in a fight.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Magnus is just cool, isn't he?
Yeah,
he's like the super psycho.
he is sort of being groomed to take the Emperor's place,
Yeah.
or do something. It's not quite clear what, but do something with the Golden Throne.
What indeed? We may never find out.
What the fuck is the point of the Golden Throne?
What the fuck is the point of anything in the 40k universe? I'm really looking forward to the episode I teased earlier about the numbers not making sense. That's going to be.
It's going to be
a good one.
It is going to be very, very good. But I think, unless you've got anything else, I think we could talk about this for ages. There's lots and lots that we haven't.
We could indeed, and we could have, of course, discussed the 2 unknown Primarchs, but I think we'll save that because you're going to yell at me.
I'm really going to yell at you. Why don't tease them? Who are they? Who are the 2 unknown Primarchs that are still alive?
Well, I can only tell you one because
Okay.
it's obvious, and anyone who disagrees with this clearly just hasn't actually read the source material. It's obviously Archaeon from the fantasy, mainly from the fantasy universe, because as we know, they're the same universe. And Archaeon got stranded there and fell. Clearly, it makes a lot of sense.
No.
And the other guy did, I think, very much die at Russ's hands. We may never know who he was. Except that we do.
No. I don't know why I said tell us. I've become
Because you wanted to end the episode on some absolute wisdom. A proper wisdom bombshell.
Right.
You're going to come and hit me later, aren't you?
With that shitball out of the way. Thanks for listening to this episode of Expertise is Overrated. As you've just heard, we've said some things that are either objectively wrong or downright offensive. Feel free to let us know. Rate the podcast and leave us a comment, or drop us an email at expertiseisoverrated@gmail.com, or tweet us at @0expertise.
In our next episode, we will land on the shores of Westeros to discuss who is the hero of George R.R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire. So get ready for more nonsense and a lot of Sean being wrong.